Welcome to Famous Historic Battles channel. Today, we are going to talk about one of the most famous battles of late antiquity, the Battle of Châlons in 451 AD. Introduction: a world on the brink of destruction. It was the year 451 AD, and the fate of Western Europe hung in the balance. The Huns, a terrifying force from the Eurasian steppes, had cut a swath of destruction across Gaul, leaving devastation in their wake. At their head was Attila the Hun, a warlord so feared that he was called the Scourge of God. Rome, though a shadow of its former self, was still a force to be reckoned with. In this critical hour, its hopes lay with Flavius Aetius, the last great Roman general, and an unlikely coalition of Romans, Visigoths, and other Germanic tribes. Their confrontation on the Catalaunian Plains, known as the Battle of Châlons, would be one of the most pivotal battles in late antiquity, halting the Hunnic advance and shaping the course of European history. The context: Rome's last stand. The Western Roman Empire, weakened by internal strife and barbarian incursions, was in dire straits. In the preceding decades, Rome had lost much of its territory and influence, relying increasingly on alliances with barbarian foederati to defend its borders. Attila, meanwhile, had consolidated his rule over the Huns, absorbing numerous Germanic and Scythian tribes into his ranks. In 450 AD, he received a letter from Honoria, the sister of Emperor Valentinian III, offering him marriage as a desperate plea for help. Whether this was a genuine proposal or a misunderstanding, Attila took it as a pretext for invasion, demanding half of the Western Roman Empire as his dowry. When Valentinian refused, Attila mobilized his army, crossing the Rhine and devastating Gaul. City after city fell before the Hunnic advance, culminating in the siege of Orleans. It was here that Aetius, having assembled a coalition of Romans, Visigoths under King Theodoric I, and various other Germanic tribes, marched to intercept the Huns. Attila, realizing he was facing a unified opposition, abandoned the siege and retreated to the open plains of Châlons, where the decisive battle would take place. The armies and their strategies. The two armies that faced each other at Châlons were among the most formidable of the age. Attila's forces consisted of his elite Hunnic horse archers, supported by Ostrogoths, Gepids, and other Germanic contingents who had sworn allegiance to him. His strategy relied on mobility, psychological warfare, and devastating cavalry charges. Aetius's coalition was a diverse but powerful force. The Romans, though diminished, still had disciplined infantry and cavalry. The Visigoths, who had settled in Gaul as Roman allies, provided a strong contingent of heavy infantry and cavalry. Additionally, Franks, Burgundians, and Alans bolstered the ranks. Aetius positioned his forces carefully. The Visigoths, under King Theodoric, held the right flank, the Romans took the center, and the Alans, acting as a buffer, held the left flank, facing Attila's elite warriors. Attila, recognizing the strength of the Visigoths, concentrated his attack on the center, hoping to break through before the flanks could close in. The battle unfolds. As the sun set on June 20th for 51 AD, the battle commenced. Attila's warriors launched a ferocious assault on the Roman center, raining down arrows before charging into melee combat. The Alans, under intense pressure, wavered, but Aetius's disciplined legions held firm. On the right flank, the Visigoths clashed with the Ostrogoths, their former kinsmen who now fought for Attila. Theodoric, leading from the front, was struck down in the chaos of battle, but his son, Thorismund, rallied the Visigoths with a fury, driving the Ostrogoths back. The turning point came when the Visigothic cavalry, now led by Thorismund, struck Attila's flank, throwing his ranks into disarray. The Hunnic forces, finding themselves outmaneuvered and surrounded, began to retreat. Attila, now cornered, withdrew to his fortified camp, where he prepared for a last stand. Aftermath: the end of the Hunnic advance. The next day, Aetius and Thorismund debated their next move. Though they had won the field, Attila remained a dangerous opponent. Aetius, ever the strategist, persuaded Thorismund to return to Toulouse and secure his throne, rather than pressing the attack. He feared that if the Visigoths gained too much power, they might become a greater threat to Rome than the Huns. Attila, facing starvation and lacking reinforcements, retreated beyond the Rhine. Though he would invade Italy the following year, his aura of invincibility was shattered. Within a few years, he died, and his empire fragmented. The Battle of Châlons marked the last great victory of the Western Roman Empire. Though Rome would fall in 476 AD, Aetius's triumph had bought it precious time and ensured that Europe would not fall under Hunnic domination. Legacy: a battle that shaped history. The Battle of Châlons remains one of the most significant battles of late antiquity. It was a rare moment when Romans and Germanic tribes stood together to repel a common enemy, foreshadowing the alliances that would shape medieval Europe. Aetius, the last of the Romans, had proven himself a master of diplomacy and warfare, yet his success would be short-lived. In 454 AD, he was assassinated by Emperor Valentinian III, a ruler too blind to see that he had just eliminated the last true defender of Rome. Attila, though defeated, remains one of history's most legendary conquerors. His empire disintegrated after his death, but his impact on European history is undeniable. The battle was a turning point that prevented a Hunnic hegemony in Western Europe, allowing the gradual emergence of the medieval kingdoms that would define the continent for centuries. Conclusion: the echoes of Châlons. The Battle of Châlons was not merely a clash of armies, but a clash of civilizations. Rome, in its twilight, stood one last time as a bulwark against chaos. The Visigoths, once Rome's enemies, proved their mettle as defenders of the West. And Attila, the harbinger of destruction, met his match on the fields of Gaul. Today, we look back on this battle as a moment where the course of history shifted. Had the Huns triumphed, Europe's destiny would have been radically different. But thanks to Aetius and his allies, the legacy of Rome endured even as the empire itself faded into history. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, like, and share the video to discover new famous battles.